Narita Boy is a 2D pixel art hack and slash game from Studio Koba and published by Team 17. Set in the 80s, it places you in the shoes of the titular Narita Boy and tasks you with ridding the digital realm of him and the Stallions, an army of corrupted entities who want to rule over the whole digital realm and try to merge into the real world. Armed with the trusty Techno Sword, you will chop your way through 3 worlds, reassembling the fragmented memories of the creator of the digital realm so he can restore balance and eradicate him. Starting off, the visuals are excellent. Pixel art games are coming on in leaps and bounds recently, and Narita Boy continues this theme. The area landscapes are rich and vibrant and are an absolute joy to look at. The retro 80s aesthetic is in full effect here, from every level being coated in layers of neon to the screen having a slightly curved and blurry CRT effect which can be switched off if you hate it. All of the NPC models are really well detailed. All of the enemies are quite distinct with superb animations, and they all die in a nice, interesting fashion. The bosses in particular have a health bar that's represented by a beating black heart, and that gradually pumps faster as they absorb damage until it bursts in glorious fashion. In fact, the worst designed character model is that of the Narita Boy himself, who's just a grey stick figure with a glowing symbol on his chest and a yellow block for the face. Pity more detail couldn't have gone into the lead character. The visuals are not the high point of Narita Boy, however. It's the soundtrack by Salvador Fornelez. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. It's an explosion of synth and techno excellence that complements the gameplay and surroundings perfectly. Subdued and simple during the story and exploration sections, and pounding and complex during the combat, it carries you along at just the right pace, at just the right time. It's a real show of how a soundtrack can enhance the gameplay so much, and Studio Koba and Salvador Fornelez deserve so much credit for it. Storyline-wise, there's 2 distinct layers. Narita Boy's quest to defeat him and liberate the 3 worlds, or houses as they're called, and the journey through the creator's memories. Each house's quest objectives are vomited out at the beginnings in jargon-laden walls of text that seem almost designed to be difficult to follow. It gets easier outside of the starting sections, but not by much. There's just far too much text at time. You'll wind up just smashing the button as quick as you can to speed through it, and you'll only take in 1 word in every 5. It doesn't make the game worse, but it makes it a bit more effort to enjoy. By contrast, the creator's memory sections are absolute gold and are easily the game's high point. Soundtracked with a gentle music box style, the melody and memories give the game a surprisingly emotional tone. Detailing the creator's life from his early childhood to the present, each sequence expertly helps link the digital realm you've been fighting through to the real world you're trying to save. I genuinely got excited every time I came across one of these memories, and I thoroughly enjoyed them all. The gameplay and combat is where Narita Boy starts to let itself down though. With the gameplay, the controls are really floaty and you never feel as if you're in full control. Even the gentlest push of the analog stick will produce huge exaggerated movements, and the lack of D-pad controls is a frankly incomprehensible oversight, especially seeing as how the D-pad isn't used for anything else. This lack of control really becomes apparent in the game's platforming sections. You'll routinely overshoot ledges, and it gets very annoying, especially in the odd boss fight where platforming and combat are combined. Trying to land on a small ledge at full speed while also dodging an attack will have you swearing at your monitor in frustration. It feels like this is a game that calls for precise platforming, but doesn't have precise platforming controls. It's a mechanism that gets stale fast. The combat is a little better, but suffers from the same staleness as the platforming. At the outset, you're given a standard base of moves, a 3-hit combo and a shotgun blast that can be powered up into a screen-length beam attack. To this, you'll add your standard fare of an uppercut attack, a downward strike, a shoulder bash and a dash attack. And yep, that's it for moves. None of them evolve over the course of the game in any way, and most aren't usable on every type of enemy. They're really only usable on the enemy that they were designed for, making them seem less like a proper combat technique and more of a kind of peculiar peg for a peculiar hole. In fact, most of their use comes from the use in platforming, not in combat. The shoulder bash can be used to break through certain walls, the downstrike is used to get through floors, and the uppercut's chief use is the fact that you jump higher using it. Combine this with most of the enemies only having one attack and one method to dodge, and you've got a combat mechanic that is shockingly short of ideas. There is a wildfire mechanism where you power up a particular colour symbol above your head and can deal and will also receive extra damage to enemies with that same symbol, but it doesn't make the combat any more fun and can be totally ignored if you like. Having said all this, the combat in Narita Boy is quite a lot of fun until you hit this nadir. The problem is, you'll hit it pretty quickly. The exploration element suffers massively from a similar lack of ideas. Ignore anyone who tells you that this game is a Metroidvania style. It's nothing of the sort. In those games, the backtracking and exploration is worked to form part of the core game design. In Narita Boy, it's tacked on just to stop the game being in linear progression from one end of the map to the other. Running back and forth looking for a particular door without a map will test your patience, and the fact that keys have no identifying text is baffling. They're only identified the moment you pick them up, so if you miss that, you better hope the mission objectives state what they're for, they don't always, or you're stuck running around an admittedly very pretty labyrinth. This doesn't bog the game down much as the maps aren't that large, but it's another puzzling design lapse. In the end, Narita Boy is a short game that benefits from being short. It doesn't overstay its welcome by much and it's enjoyable while it lasts. Its main attraction is the gorgeous artwork, banging soundtrack and an emotional story. Its main flaws are repetitive combat, loose controls and a lack of any innovation outside of the audio-visual elements. It's gorgeous, flashy, fun for a bit and completely hollow. And hey, what could be more 80s than that?
Rest in